watching the news today and how many people are dying because of this weather. I think in Boston, wasn't it, they had almost 2 foot and showed people trying to dig out. They wasn't used to it. And then in Vegas, I believe it was, where, what was it, 5 car, well, multiple car piled up, 9 people killed. It's a sad time in this world we're living in. And then I wrote some of these things down here, when you see the news and remember what the prophet said about a 3rd world war. He said, now remember, 1 world war, then 2, and he said 1 more will send her to spinning out there and it'll be over with. Well, how many's watching the news on that? Here's Russia right now. I wrote some of the things down. It's hard for me to remember everything. But building up their military right on the border with Ukraine. And he's telling everybody, oh, it ain't nothing to it. We're just putting it there to practice our military. Well, there ain't nobody falling for that. So America, they've got 8,500 troops on alert right now, ready. The European Union, I don't know how many different countries are involved in this. And they're ready to just start throwing bombs anytime now. If he makes one bad move, it's going to be on. And you talk about starting a world war. It's got to happen sooner or later. I don't know if we really believe that or not, but it's got to happen. And I believe we're right in the door of it. And when that starts, oh my, what a sad time that's going to be. But all of these things that prophet has done said was going to happen. And when I know, I wrote down here how many troops that Russia had already there on the border with Ukraine. And all this for practicing, he said. On top of all the military equipment he's got there, 130,000 troops. And then, well, that's what they're all hollering. Said it was the biggest buildup by Russia there since the Cold War. So what's fixing to happen? Why has he got them there? I go back to what the prophecy was in 33, was it? Or was it back further than that? I can't remember the year right now. I got so many numbers of things in my mind. But the prophet said, a voice spoke and said, watch Russia, watch Russia. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm watching. Amen. And then you watch the people in the news, well, we can do this and we'll take them out and we'll do all that. But the prophet said there's a bomb hanging in the hangars there with our name on it. Amen. And that man, he just don't care. He will use it, that's for sure. But all of that is just, it should be building the bride up. Amen. Making them even happy to know all this is coming to pass. So then I watch the preachers and things. And this one, George Smith, how many knows who I'm talking about? Brother Branham's son-in-law that was married to Rebecca. And she's dead now. I think she was born in 46 and I was born in 48. So she's about the age of me, so he would have to be probably in that age, same age, somewhere along there. And how many's ever seen pictures of him? How many's seen pictures of him lately? Well, I was going through my phone like I do, looking at this preacher, seeing what they're saying, seeing what this one. And it was a colored man was interviewing a fella sitting there and asking questions about Brother Branham. And I got to looking, he don't have any hair except a little bit right around the top of his ears, wrinkled. And when I seen it, I said, that can't be George Smith. Lord have mercy. But I got to listen, and it was George Smith. When I seen that, I thought, Lord, how much we age. We're all right here. We see one another all the time. But if people would come in here, I said one time if my dad would come back now, how many of us would he even know? He'd be asking himself, how in the world do people get so ugly? Since I left here. It is unbelievable how much we change, but we don't recognize it because we're around one another. And then, how many remembers Charlie Spencer? Had the church up where we all went up to Donnie Reagan, Donnie Reagan was preaching there, and we all went up on the mountain. And he's the one that made all them remarks about my dad that I didn't like. I had to really hold myself, keep me from going after the man because he was that smart mouth. But he passed away. 2 or 3 weeks ago or something, Brother Garvin now, where they get the paper up there, they sent me a picture of him. And I said, well, that can't be the Spencer that I know. I remembered him from back then, and Lord, that was how many years ago since Donnie Reagan preached here? Way before my dad passed away. And I got to looking and reading, I said, well, that's him. But I would not have known the man. These things get me to thinking, if we didn't see one another all the time, I don't think we'd recognize one another. And I've got 2 brothers. Now Wayman, I'd recognize him, but now the other one, I hadn't seen him in so many years. I guess I'd recognize him, but I'm just wondering how much he's changed. I think the last time I seen him was when my mother passed away. And that, I don't even remember what year that was. But I watch, we come over here to get the ice and stuff off of the lot so it'd be ready for today. Or these young fellas did, not, I just walk around. Yeah, I guarantee you if I'm here walking around and I can move anything, if it's ice, I'm not gonna walk on it. I can't handle a fall right now. But if it's snow, I'm gonna grab one of them scoops and just take off with them. But walking around out there and I get ready to leave and go back to the house, I said, well, I'm gonna have to get out of this because the wind was blowing terrible. And I started walking back to the truck and Nathaniel come walking beside that. He said, I'm gonna make sure you get to your car because there's still ice on this road, this parking lot. And he said, you are getting on up there now. And I said, I am getting on up there, that's for sure. But I look around and see, I was telling somebody just the other day, when I stand up here and preach now, I think when I won't go out all the way back when we first opened up, but just when I used to sit over here in this corner and play the organ, and I'd look back, and there was Jesse's kids, there was the Fitzgerald kids, the boys, girls, the farmers, and all them just young people. All the little Prices, that come back then. And the Barkers. And they was kids then, and I was an old man. I wasn't an old man then, I ain't gonna claim that. But now I look over the audience and they are grandpas. Not just moms and dads, but they're grandparents. Now where does that put me? And I got so I can't even get a haircut. I cut my own hair and I'm not able to cut because I'm getting old, I'm telling one right there. But I did give my boys one the other day, and I need to give me one this week. But y'all keep praying for me. These feet, they've been giving me a pretty good fit. I'm sitting here stomping them now. The last time I was here, they got pretty bad. And I didn't know it, but things just pop up unexpectedly because I got a call the other day from Dr. Mahoney's office that said, we want to remind you of your appointment. And I forget what day it was. I didn't even know I had an appointment. But it's just for a checkup. And when I got over there, he said, how are you doing? I said, well, good. So far, still have a little problem breathing. He said, well, I told you that was going to take a long time. And I said, these feet, they're still getting numb on me. Well, he's giving me a pill called gabapentin, I believe it is. And I've been taking that. I can't see much difference in it. So he's getting me another pill to take for it. I don't know what the name of it was, but it'll be a few days here and I'll be getting that. I told him, I said, I think it might be a pinched nerve or something in my back that is causing that, because they go plumb numb on me. And he said, well, we'll get an appointment set up at the hospital, so you pray. They're going to do what they call MRI, I believe it is. So they're going to do one and check and just see if it is anything there. If it is, whatever it takes. So what if they have to do some kind of cutting on you or something? Well, from what I hear, the way they do things now, it ain't real bad. And for what I've been through with here in the last little while, it's not going to bother me. Because every time I go to the doctor, we're going to get some blood work. So I don't get out of the doctor's office. I can just go for a checkup and they got to stick a needle in my arm and take blood out. And Rachel loves to hear about that. And she'll ask out there if I ain't careful, just talking about it. I forget about her being that bad. And when I get back home sometimes, I said, that nurse was talking. I know when I went to the other one a few weeks back for my heart, they looked at the top of this and it was the doctor and the nurse, the woman nurse there with her. And she said, Lord, have you ever seen such pretty veins? I thought, what is a pretty vein? And she kept rubbing, she said, look at that. Have you ever seen anything like this? Well, when she started trying to get the bush, she couldn't get it. I thought, that pretty didn't help that. But she said, of all the times that I have done this, is the first time I've ever failed not to get it the first time. And I said, well, that had to be me. But then the one, when was it? Yes, what day was Thursday, I think, when I went. Thursday or Friday, I can't remember now. And she started pushing around. She said, Lord, it's hard to believe. No people don't have veins like you got. I thought, well, keep on bragging. Are you doing this to try to get me? So I always just look off. I don't watch them do that. I look off. She said, are you okay? And I said, I'm fine. And I didn't even feel the needle. Now, that ain't that way with all of them. I know you probably think I'm lying when I say I don't even feel the needle, but I didn't. They put a rubber band around you, get it real tight and all that. But there at his office, I have not felt the needle, not once. I even looked the one time and I said, are you doing got that? She said, yeah. And I said, well, that's the easiest I've ever. She said, that's the way it's supposed to be. I thought, well, tell some of them over at the hospital. They'll gouge the daylights out of you. And I mean, it gets pretty painful. But you pray that when we go and have that done, and maybe the pill that he's changing for me will help some. But I told him he likes to play tennis himself, talking about the doctor. And he's younger than my son, my oldest son. I think his parents are 70. He said his dad was 71 years old. And I said, I done told some of these boys, Joe was over there the other day, and I was telling him, if I ever get my feet straight, I'll go over there and be there one of these boys in tennis and basketball. He said, well, you got to have your partner. And he was always my partner. But boy, we're a lot gray-headed now than we was when we played the last time, ain't we? But that don't stop us from playing tennis. But you just pray, keep believing with me. I am not a spring chicken anymore. I am an old man. Got a lot of gray hair, and I'm gonna cut a bunch of it out probably tomorrow. And I'm afraid if I cut all the gray out, I'm gonna be bald-headed. So I'm not gonna worry about the gray. I'm just gonna trim it up, keep all the gray there. And to me, Dr. Mahoney said, gray means you have wisdom. So I've got all kind of wisdom. So I don't know what happens to these fellas that gets bald-headed before they get gray. I guess they never have any wisdom. So we got one thing on them anyhow, don't we? Y'all remember my dad, how gray he got. And he left here at 57 years old. But he parted his hair right in the middle. And I've got a picture, and it was just about like he said. He said, I get so mad. He said, I look in the mirror, and where I'm gray, he said, right here, it looks like I ain't even got no hair. And he didn't, you know, by his, that's where I got it from. He didn't want you touching his hair. Don't move it. You couldn't move it unless you had a hammer. And I'm not stretching it. I put some hairspray on mine, but that man, he would comb his wet, and I'm not stretching it a bit, he would hold that can right against his head and spray it so solid till it would run down on his forehead. He'd take a rag and wipe the hairspray off. And if you try to, if he run into somebody, he'd hurt them bad, no doubt about it. Be about like a goat or something. But he was very particular about his hair. And I told you, even mine now, I know since I had that jump and had to fight that a lot of it's come out. But when I keep listening to the messages of the prophet, one I've been playing the song on that he sung, Beyond the Curtain of Time. How many's ever listened to that? Just to hear him sing it. Lord, makes you want to be right there. And I know he's there now. But they whoever put it on there, and they fix it, and they got it showing real pretty green fields, and people come running, women in white, long hair, barefooted like he said. And when you see all that, and beyond the curtain of time, and that prophet, oh my, just the anointing that was there when he would sing. And you hear that, you have to think about some of our loved ones. I honestly believe with all my heart we got some right there. Amen. And I believe, when we see that and realize where they're at, what they're going through now, I wouldn't want them to come back here again. And I'd say, we know how many believes the prophet went over there. Amen. It wasn't a vision. He went there. And his words was, talking to them, he said, do I have to go back? And they said, yeah. You have to go back. He said, I looked back and my body was moving on the bed. And he was hollering, I don't want to go back to that. Well, his first wife, when she died, you believe he called her back. And what was her words to him? Why did you call me back? I don't want to come back to this life again. And she was a young woman. So there's something over there. And ain't you glad God had somebody check it out for us? And somebody we got confidence in. I wrote something down here, watching it this week. I mentioned this fella before. Y'all remember Brother Willard Collins that pastored the Tabernacle, the Branham Tabernacle. Brother Neville was in. That's the one Brother Branham had there, but it wasn't long after Brother Branham passed away till they took him out for whatever reason and put Willard Collins in. And I never did talk to Brother Neville, never got to meet him in person. Now Willard Collins, I did. I talked to him in Indiana and then talked to him on the phone when they was trying to condemn what I believed that the prophet had said, but they couldn't answer me. But now he's done gone on. Well, there's one on there, if y'all ever want to put his name in there and check it out, and I'm not afraid to say it because he's on YouTube too. And that's where you pull this up at. And his name is John Collins. How many have ever seen him or heard anything they said? Well, that's the grandson of Willard Collins. And he had an old man there the other day. I can't remember his name, but he was a critic of Brother Branham. Well, this John Collins is a critic of Brother Branham's. And the things that man says, when you pull his name up, you can just keep going. He got part 1, part 2, and just keep going. And he said the whole time I was there, I knew it wasn't right. And I got a chance one time, like he had to get out of that cult that he calls it. I had to get out. And how dangerous it was. And when I hear that, my words was over and over, God have mercy on that man. How pitiful it is. He said, even this fake cloud, they call it. He said that they call the supernatural cloud. He said it's a fake cloud. And he said in Houston, Texas, where they took that picture, he said, I've got pictures in that same Coliseum where there's having big singings and things. And he said, you see them lights. Well, lights are going to show up in different places like that. But he said, look at that. He said, it's in that same building. He said, that's just a fake cloud, pillar of fire that they're talking about. Then he called this cloud a fake cloud. And to sit there, and he went to church there for years as a young boy. And he made it sound like, well, this is his own words. I didn't know what was going to happen when I tried to get out of that cult. I was scared what they was going to do to me. I know every bit of that. You hate to say things like that on TV, but I know every bit of that is a lie. There was nothing like that went on with the Branham Tabernacle. And when they come out and say things, I'm there to defend it. Now, one thing, some of the things he says, it makes you wonder sometimes. The man said, well, wasn't your granddad the pastor there at that tabernacle? He said, yeah, for years. And he said, well, how did he like it? Now, this is his words. I'm quoting him. He said, oh, he loved it. He said, why shouldn't he? He said he made all kind of money. And all he had to do was go in and play a tape, because he was the pastor, and then collect the tithes. And he said he absolutely made all kind of money. When you hear them things, you wonder about things like this. And because I know, I was down there one time. Y'all remember I told you about it? I went in and I met Brother Collins and them out at the Jury's restaurant after the service was over. And when I was there, as soon as they dismissed, I was the first one out the door. I was going to get on out and go. And a woman followed me out the door. She worked at the publishing house. And she come running up behind me and said, sir. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, where are you from? And I told her, she said, did y'all have service? Good services? I said, oh, yeah. Well, is it kind of lively a little bit? I said, yes, it is. We have a good time. She went like this. It's dead here. She said, we're getting nothing. Now that come from, I'm not taking that from nobody. This is just a woman that talked to me tell me. And she said, it's dead in here. We're not getting anything. So I wish something would happen here where we could. But then you hear, how many has ever read the things that Brother Branham's daughter Sarah said about some of that? So, calling it Collins Corner, her mother before she died. And they was even asking this George Smith about her and where she was at. And I think it said she had something like, I forget how many children. Some of y'all may have heard way up there. Her and her husband. And he said, well, is she still in the United States? He said, as far as I know. He wouldn't elaborate much on that. But you can find out a lot of things when you listen to people like this. And then one thing that I had to agree with that John Collins on, he said there's one thing that messes me up, and this is what turns so many people, again, the message. He said there's churches all over the United States and out of the United States. He said the world over. But he said you can go into a town, and I can name some of the towns. He said you can have 1, 2, 3 churches, maybe more sometimes, and they will not worship together. Said they don't agree with one another. And I thought how true that is. Now what does that do to people that wants to criticize Brother Branham? It gives them something to use. But to the real bride, that don't phase them one bit. You know who that prophet was. You know what the message is now. And he called them message churches and message people. But he said, and I can name them. I can name bunches of them where you go. How many? I'm just going to ask you here. Go to Roanoke. There's churches there. Go to Carolina. There's some there. I met some over in Ocracoke. They wanted to come over and talk to us when we was down there. There's somewhere in Carolina where they had a place. And you get all them places, try to get one of them to come here. That ain't but one thing keeping them away from here. You know what it is? The Word. And say, well, why don't we go worship with them? Give me a half a chance. Let them ask me. Why ask the whole church? Let's go worship with them one night. But they're not going to do it. And look at Donnie Reagan in Tennessee. Look at that Spencer, it's a different one, in Louisiana. I can just keep naming them. But do you think they'd come and worship with us 1 minute? Why, they don't even believe in Joseph. They want to criticize him. So when you hear all these different churches out there, it's about as bad as it is in denominations out there. You got so many denominations and none of them want to worship together. None of them don't agree alike. But the message has become the same way. But somewhere out of, and that prophet warned of these things. But on top of all of that, somewhere there's a handful of people, the prophet said, that will say with every word that he said. And I don't know about you, but I want to be one of them. And when we get into it here in a minute, and I'm making sure that I mentioned everything that I had wrote down here, and I got the names right, because they listen to these preachers on YouTube like I do, and I want to hear what they're saying. But when I see some of these people that I hadn't seen for years, I've never met George Smith, but I've seen pictures of him. He's the one that went into the cave of the prophet and filmed it for us. How many saw that? And why, if you seen him then and see him, well, I got pictures of when Brother Branham was living, and he was there with Rebecca, and you see him now, you say, oh my goodness. So I would say he's in his, I'm 73, he's probably 76, maybe even a little older. But Lord, where have the years went? Think about it, just since my dad left. Here is what, 30 how many years? I added up sometimes. It was 87. Nobody don't know how many years? 35. How many? 35 years. Think about that. So, I was trying to remember how old I was. About, 37, 38, something like that, when he passed away. And here I am, 73 years old now. I love that number. I love the 7, I love the 3. And I like in the word here, 7 thunders, 3rd pull. How many believes them God's numbers start with? So I like the number that I am right now. But when I hear all this and hear them preachers saying, oh, we're a message church, and criticize Joseph like they do. We're a message church. We're believers. And we'll not touch marriage and divorce. But I've got a book right here where that prophet said, and it's called Unveiling of God. And that prophet said, if you say you believe this message and you don't live it, then you do not believe it. Amen. Now, when we hear that, that's so important. What about us sitting right here? Man and women, if you don't live that message, it don't matter what you speak from here and say, I believe it, I believe it, I believe it, I believe it, then you don't. It don't matter how much we say we believe it. If you don't live it, you don't believe it. And to hear that Collins talking, and he said, one thing that really got me, he said, now I want you to catch these words and see, I think he's in a Baptist church now or something like that, and he's got a big college degree and was bragging about all that. He's an older man now, he's not just a young man. But he said, all I could hear, that man said, didn't Branham degrade women? He said, oh yeah. Said all the time. He said he could referred to women as whores and harlots constantly. Now see how they take that word and how they make it sound. And he said that's all I could hear. Said that was always in my ears. When I left there, I was so glad to get out because all you hear about a woman, they're whores and harlots. Now these are his words, people, that I'm talking about. God let me hear these things for a reason. But to hear him sit there and criticize that, and he said, then he finally come out with a message called, I knew it was coming, said he finally come up with a message called marriage and divorce. And he said on top of that, he even said when they give a woman a right to vote, that's when they started making a big mistake. Well, everything that prophet said was absolutely the truth. And to hear it, he said, then you go back into Genesis. I'm pointing these things out to you so you know what's going on out there. Goes back to Genesis, and he said he wanted to refer to the woman as being the one that caused the fall and all sin and sickness and everything. And he said, that's a lie. He said, we find out in the Bible that the man was just as guilty. I thought, these are tough words, but I thought, you lying devil. Amen. Why, over in the New Testament, the Bible tells us, Adam not being deceived, but the woman being deceived. She's the one caused the fall. And while there's a lot of women will jump on that bandwagon, well, there's somebody on our side, you better forget any man getting on your side and have God on your side, or you're not going anywhere. Say, well, he did come down on women hard. He sure did, but you got to remember one thing. That was God in a prophet, not that man. How many believes that? And a lot of them don't want to hear that. Just like women obeying. They don't want to hear that. And to hear somebody like this Collins talking like that, well, they'd probably join right in with him. Well, maybe he did preach too hard on. Maybe he did. I just don't think we ought to have to obey our husbands and do all this and respect them like that prophet said. Well, I'm going to tell you again, you'll either do it or you'll be with the rest of the world. That message was, the whole marriage and divorce was, thus saith the Lord. From beginning to the end. And say, how do you know people don't like it? I preach it. You remember? I preach that message. And the feelings that I get coming back at me sometimes right here as many years as we've heard that. So there's a lot in Indiana don't believe that in that marriage and divorce, don't believe in polygamy. I can't help what anybody says or what anybody does. That message is what I'm holding on to. And I know what was said there, and there ain't a preacher in the country, and I'm putting it on TV, there ain't a preacher anywhere that say they believe that prophet can bring that message and prove what I'm preaching wrong. They may bring their idea on that and what he said about Joseph. But how many got the letter from Joseph, or read the letter from Joseph this week? Oh my, the words, I am, and talk about how it's going to thunder. And why? Just read between the lines. Amen. Listen to what he's saying. Amen. And why, they despise that man. Do you believe in the Bible? They hated him. Talking about Joseph in the Bible, they hated him even without a cause. Amen. You know what most of their problem was? They're jealous. Amen. You know what's the matter with them today? They're jealous. Amen. How many watches what's going on there in Indiana now? The crowd got so big in the regular Branham Tabernacle till they had to move it out to the new place where they got this, I guess it's all in one area there. The office, it's not all right on top of one another, but then he's got the Stillwater's camp. Look what all he's built there. And people we're talking about, it takes millions of dollars to do what he's done out there. Then the church they had there, he kept growing. And I've got it on my thing there, what do you call it? Agapo tablet. I can pull it up and it shows what they've got done every so often. They ain't updated it here for a while, but they got it about ready to move into. And how they've updated that. Had to build a balcony because the crowd was overflowing there. And when you see that, and I've had people, how in the world does he do that? Where does the money come from? Well, I'm just going to tell you this, and I believe it 100%. Everything he touches prospers. Amen. How many have seen some of the pictures of what I'm talking about? If you ever seen the pictures of the Stillwater's camp, all the buildings that he built there. And Lord have mercy. What was it we sent him? Is it right much that we sent him here a while back? And then the letter that we got. Sent one to Brother Dale to start with to read to the church, thanking us for the money. And then, a few months later, went out to my mailbox and here was one from Indiana. I took it in and read it. And he said, I'm so sorry I was this long getting back to you. Well, he done sent us a letter thanking us. But he said, I just want to thank you, friend. And about 2 or 3 times in that letter, friend. Amen. You don't know what that done to me. Because I am criticized so much for what I believe and holding on. And these preachers out here get up, and it's unbelievable. Watch Donald Reagan jump from one side of the platform to the other, run and jump and holler. And then, I can't find in my Bible, I got the messages, they can't deny none of it. I can't find in my Bible where Joseph's a prophet. Just because you named Joseph don't mean you're a prophet. And condemning him constantly. Well, Joseph ain't the one that said he was a prophet. God said, Joseph, my son, you're a prophet. That makes him a prophet. So let every man, I don't care if it's Donnie Reagan, Spencer, or Lawson, or whoever it is, let every one of the word be a lie, but let God's word be the truth. And when God said, Joseph, my son, thou art a prophet, he is a prophet. Amen. When God spoke through that prophet and said polygamy was introduced in both man and beast, then it was introduced there. And I'm holding to what? The message. Amen. So who's going to come out in the end? The ones that stays with the word. Amen. And here, it can't be much longer, and I hope you realize that. I'm going to have to move his feet around some more. But it can't be much longer until some things are going to start happening. I'm not talking about good things. There's going to be bad things that's going to be happening. I don't know about you, but I want to be able, when these things start hitting, Lord, I have not been a perfect man. I have failed so many times and still fall constantly. But I never fail to stick to your word. Amen. Lord. I have never backed up on one word you put in. And by the help and grace of God, I'll never back up on one word. Amen. And I hope you feel the same way. It makes me feel good. I get to thinking sometimes, well, the way I preach, I don't know how many there really even thinks about me when they leave there. Maybe they come and hear me preach, and when they leave, boy, I'm glad we got out of there. That's the way a preacher gets to feel. But then every now and then you hear this one say something, well, how much we appreciate it. Oh, if there's anything we can do, let us know. You don't know what that does to a preacher. I know Brother Joe called me, Nikki called Brina wanting a picture of me and Joseph together. And I thought, now, what do they want them pictures? And he called me the other day. He said, I got something for you, and he brought it over. Just a little cup with me and Joseph on it. The picture of the cloud. I think it's Brother Brandon with the pillar of fire over his head. And you don't know what that does. Little things that people are thinking about you. Amen. Praying for you. Well, I did have to pick on him a little bit. I said, well, whose idea was that? He said, my idea. Nikki done it, but it's my idea. So that sounds kind of like me sometimes. Well, somebody done something good, and my idea that I come up with it. But I know the prophet talked about people with just little things. One woman making a cherry pie a lot, or apple pie. And he talked about the pies that he liked. He said, how many know what his favorite pie was? How many know? Let's see your hand. Y'all don't read much. His favorite pie was cherry pie. And I'll explain that in a minute. I'm just talking like I feel led right now. How many knows what his favorite meat was? Not too many there. It was chicken. And he used that in his message. And he said, if I get a piece of cherry pie and I bite into a seed, I don't throw the pie away. He said, I throw the seed away and keep on eating pie. Amen. He said, if I'm eating a piece of chicken and get a bone, he said, I don't throw the chicken away. I throw the bone away and keep on eating chicken. He said, that's the way you do when you go to church. You may not get everything you want, but if it's something you don't like, just throw it out and just keep on eating. So when you hear all them things, how the prophet, just how simple he was. And then to hear people that he never harmed anybody. I've never known him to even criticize anybody, as much as they hated that man. But then to hear people like this, John Collins, and I'm calling his name. I wish he'd give me a call. I really do. This John Collins, the remarks he makes about that man showed me who had the right spirit to start with. And wasn't the one going out there said, he said, well, what about the children that went to that place? The man was asking him the questions. Said, we know how they treated the women. No, they don't. But he said, what about the children went there? Did they make them believe this and beat it into them? He said, oh, yeah. He said, I went out there several times to hear them just beating the daylights out of some of them kids because they didn't want them. Think about that. How sad that is that he would sit and make up lies. Some of them things had to be just made up because you know they're not true. and make that kind of a remark. And he was saying it because some of the young people, he said, I was scared because I was wanting to get out of it. I didn't want to believe it. I don't know who his mom and dad was. I know who his granddad was. But it's like when I got out, I had to just keep going because I didn't know what they was going to do. Now, I happen to know that if you wanted to go to that tabernacle, you went to it. If you didn't want to go, you didn't have to go. But they're claiming, and that's what he calls it, a cult. Every time he mentioned it, I got out of that cult there. Well, I'm going to tell you what the prophet said. If you want to know what a cult is, it's these denominations out here that you have to join. Amen. And you never had to join that tabernacle. You don't have to join this one. But a cult is something you have to join to be in it. So we know the truth. But when you hear all this going on out here, how many believe Satan has got ministers all over the world? How many believes he's got his people riding right now as hard as they can ride? But God's got somebody that's riding on a snow white horse. And I hope you catch this. The armies of heaven, believers, are riding right with them. Amen. And you know what they're on? Not a mixed horse. Not one with spots on it. I hope you hear this. Remember what I said a while ago. It ain't we say I believe it. Your life tells people whether you believe it or not. Amen. A man can watch his wife, and he knows if she believes the word or not, no matter what she says. A woman can watch her husband. She knows if he believes the word or not, it don't matter what he says. But you got to be on a solid white horse. I don't care who you are. Amen. Man or a woman. And if you're not on that, you got to be on something that's mixed. Amen. So when we say, I believe that message, get it marriage and divorce. Don't just go hunt the part about polygamy. There ain't many people going to believe that to start with, but a believer will. I'll just put it to you. But get in there where the women keep silent in all matters. Get in there where she is to respect her husband. Obey him. They don't want to hear that. And when you hear things like this fella is out there saying, why, the world's going to back him up. Well, how do you think it makes preachers like me and a few more that stays with the word, how do you think that makes us feel? Well, they're out there laughing. They're out there making fun. Oh, look how they believe. Holy thing, come on out here with us. I don't care what they say. I don't care how much they lag. I'm staying on that word. Amen. And if you stay on that, things are going to be happening out here before long. If you're watching news, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Amen. Where do you want to be when these things start happening? Amen. Do you want to be not obeying the word like you're supposed to? Think about it. Listen, moms and dads. Your children watch you. They hear this word being preached right here. And they know if you're living that word or if you're not living that word. Amen. I hope we're hearing this. I hope all of us are hearing this. I know a lot of times we think, well, we're getting by. No, we're not getting by. Amen. But we're down to the time now, and I mentioned this, boy, we're laying it's supposed to be some right pretty weather, so I'm looking forward to this coming weekend. To where, when I get back in here, I believe we'll be on fire. I've already thought, well, the way some of these things that I keep writing things down, I don't have them with me right now, they're on my desk. But I keep writing things down, getting this together. And I said, if I get that, and I'm going to have these feet going, because I'm going to have to move around a little bit when I'm preaching. And I believe it'll come to that. I used to run around, I used to walk around down here and preach. How many remembers that? I know some of you don't, because you're too young. But I remember walking this floor down here and preaching marriage and divorce. And I said, it ain't going to stay in these four walls right here. It'll get out one day, and when it does, I'm going to stand just like I am now. Well, exactly what I said happened. It hit around, not just here, all over America. Come over into England. I remember the calls I was getting. This message went. It didn't stay in these four walls. And when it did I back up? No. The prophet, he said, you might want to take it down to the courthouse, some of these squares, and play it to the people. Well, we've done that very thing that he said we might ought to do. Amen. They didn't like it. They got upset with us. but who come out on top?
Amen.
Who was it? Everybody's laughing. Oh, he won't be down there preaching now. He's going to be in jail. They won't have to put up with that no more. We won't have to hear it no more. Then how many would come out, and I'm talking about preachers, how many would come out and say, oh, if he gets back out of this right here, because that's how bad it was, if he gets out of this, I'm going down to church. How many preachers made that remark? How many people made that remark? If he gets by without any jail time in this, I'm going down there to hear him preach. Not a one of them come. So they're proven to be liars all the way around. But I'm still here preaching. I never spent a day in jail. Didn't have to spend a day there. It come right down to the very end. The people sitting in there trying to make a decision. Do we send him to prison or what do we do? And I found out later, one person held it out. That's all it took. God was watching over it. And a man that I never met in my life, I think he come here one time, from on the way from here, that wrote the poem. He come up here, just got the attention of everybody. And he wrote that poem about me, and boy, you talking about a good poem. Talking about, it was kind of like the preacher preach, about the 3 Hebrew boys, how God was watching and all of this, down around the lines there. Well, I said, oh, Elwood, Big Elwood, they call him, in that poem. And how God made sure that I come out of that. I'm sitting, how many wanted me locked up? And they couldn't do it. But thank God for a bunch of you. All of you ain't here tonight. There's a lot out sick. Be praying for them because it's junk that's been hitting so many of them. But how many of you sitting in that courtroom that day? And when they said we cannot come to an agreement here, the jury talked. And the judge said, what if we come back tomorrow? That was on a Friday evening. The man that was in charge of the jury there looked around and said, no, ain't no use, we can't do it. He may have been the one that was doing it. And the judge said, well, I'm going to do what I done with the other two. They had 3 charges. I'm going to do what I done with the other 2. I threw them out because they just made up charges because they didn't like what I was doing. He said, now I'm going to go ahead. I give y'all a chance to do it, but I'm just going to throw this one out. And all over that courtroom jarred with you people praising God. And one investigator, Randy Dyer, he's dead now too, that hated me so much, boy, he looked around like that, looked up, but there wasn't a thing in the world he could do. Y'all was thanking God for taking care of us when the world was trying to come against us. We come out right here preaching, and still God is on our side. We're going to face more than that before long. You might well get, I've laid a few things out here tonight so you know what's going on out here. And the thing that I hit here the other night, well, we didn't have it last week because it was impossible. The week before that, we had it on Saturday night, and on Sundays when all the snow came and messed us up for several days. But I stopped reading right up here, talking about the throne on page 126. But the thing I was getting in your mind, and I want it in here now for this coming weekend. In other words, here stands a lamb. John standing out there watching this happen. How many believes he looked all the way down here and saw here? He looked from down into the millennium to tell us what was going on there. Now, do you believe God did the same thing through our prophet? Do you believe he looked down through time? I was listening to, who was it? That was George Smith, I believe, talking the other day. And that one fellow asked me, he said, now what about this prophecy of 1977? Said, what really happened right there? George Smith said, well, I can just tell you this. Said, I remember him sitting talking one day, and he said, I looked down through the span of time. And he said, of course, only a prophet can do that. And that was absolutely the truth. And said, I looked all the way down until I seen the number 77. And everything just went dark. Completely. Spiritually. So what happened right there? I mean, the world is gone. The world, the church world is dead and will never come back again. It's over. But there's a bride on earth. But then he was talking, and how these things really encouraged me. He said we was all sitting at a restaurant eating one day, and Rebecca was talking about it. And he said, Rebecca said, a cop come in, a policeman, and sat down and ordered a meal, a table or two over from him, and said, all of a sudden he got a call, and they just brought his food and set it on the table. Said, he jumped up when he got the call and took off, got in his car and took off. Said all them was, wonder what happened. Brother Ram just sitting there eating his meal. They was all wondering what could have happened that he had to leave his meal there. He just kept eating. And one of them said, what do you think happened? He said, on down the road out here, said a boy fell out of a tree and broke his arm, and he's going to be fine. Think about that. Say, how do you know? How do you know everything you know? Does that tell you what was behind them eyes? Do you know you couldn't stand in front of him unless he saw your whole life? You wouldn't come tell him, I didn't do this or I didn't do that. He'd look you right back in the face. It was God hiding in a man.
Amen. Right.
Just like he did when Jesus was here, God was hid behind that flesh.
Amen.
And that's why so many times Jesus said, flesh and blood didn't reveal this to you. What you're looking at here didn't reveal that, but my Father, which is in heaven, has revealed it. Look how that prophet done. In the prayer line and all. He said, now remember the little woman at the well? He had to talk to her to catch her spirit. He said after he talked to her a while, he seen what was going on. He said, now I need to talk to you a little bit. There was that same God hid behind flesh in this day. And this message that I mentioned a while ago, the unveiling of God. And that prophet said, now remember, he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Be real careful. Don't miss it. Did he have the same ministry that Jesus had when he was here? How many know what dovetailing is?
Amen.
Did it dovetail with the ministry of Jesus when he's here perfectly? And the prophet said, just think, out of all the miracles he done, there's more done in one service here because there's more people here now than was done the whole time he was here on earth. And what did Jesus say? Greater things you will do. Well, the prophet said, we know we couldn't do any greater, but what was being said there, more will be done. Why? There's more people here. So he explained every mystery. And he looked down through time. Even when this was going on. Did he have a vision of this to start with? And then in the room when all of these seals was coming to him, I'm going to open up on that this coming weekend. Didn't he say, I saw it unfold. Now he was looking at something. I saw it unfold up to these 7 thunders, and that's as far as we can go. I got wrote right here, stop, go no further than this. He done that. How many times did he say in that 7th seal? What this mystery is, I do not know. I could not make it out. I couldn't interpret that. Is that what the angel told him? You will not explain what's going on there. He didn't say you won't know it. But that third pull, when it comes, you will not explain it. And when he left here, his word was all of it. Not a one of you got this at the end of them seals. Not a one of you got it. You weren't even supposed to get it. Just live good Christian lives. And if he wants you to have it, he'll get it to you. Wonder how he was going to do it. Can I tell you this? You believe this is the book of redemption right here? It's all written in the book. And all you have to do is believe what it said in this right here. What did he tell you? You'll have a new name one day. And it will be revealed in them thunders. Now, if you believe this, you'll live that.
Amen. Right.
How many believes now he's already revealed himself as Son of Man, the prophet William Murray Brown? You believe it? Then you live that. You looked at the word that way. What's it revealing itself as now? And most of them don't want it, but as Son of David for the millennium. You believe that, you're living that message. You're believing it. You're living that new name because that's what he said would come in this day. And if you say you believe it, don't live it, then you don't believe it. You say, well, I'm ashamed to say that name around in front of people that don't really, it don't matter what people think. They already think you've lost your mind. And when it comes down to it, we done what the Word says. Let the mind that's in Christ be in you. Well, how many believes He's the Word? Then let that be in you. Then let every man's word be a lie. But let God's be the truth. How many's got anything out of what I come out? I did not intend to do this tonight, but I done it and I feel good about it. We needed what we got right here. I believe it built some of his faith up a little bit. But do what I told you a while ago. Pray. There are so many. I seen somebody got me a picture of I'm trying to think of his name. Jonathan's kids. One of them. I seen it on the phone. And that little baby laying there suffering and crying. You talking about something touching. And it's not just that one. Several people are getting this, but when you see little children suffering like that, my heart just goes out. I start praying right then, rebuking the devil. So it's not just one or two, it's several people out there now. I know Michael and Heather and them are not here because they said their little boy had it. Now, some said he didn't and some said he did. I don't know, but he said, I don't want to go down there because I don't want to make people mad at me if I come. He said, I don't have no symptoms or nothing, and he'll be going to work tomorrow. I said, well, there's some will get mad at you. But I'm just going to tell you, if I don't have symptoms, I'm coming to church. If I'm around 100 people that had it, if I don't have the symptoms, I'm not claiming it. You know, if we ain't careful sometimes, we wouldn't even have to put up with things that the devil hits us with. Why? Well, I was around that person, so I got it. I'm around that person, I better not get around you, I got it. Why can't we think right the opposite of that? I don't have it. So what if I get it after I say that? Then just keep on believing and it'll leave you. So what if I go and pass away? Then it's your time to go. And I don't know about you, but the prophet said once you realize what's over there, you don't care to go. You leave this old body that is a past house and this simple world we live in, and you get over there to where there's no death, no sorrow, no heartaches, and everything is perfect. So why would a believer even fear death? You believe I'm telling you the truth? So don't, if it's time to go, just say, I'll shut my eyes right here, I'll wake up right over there. Is that what we want to do? God bless you. I hope you got something out of this tonight. I was aiming to take off in the book, but when I got started, if he just keeps leading me, I'm going to give you what he's given me. And if it didn't touch none of you, somebody will watch it. It might build their faith right up to what maybe the devil fighting with something about Brother Branham or something. And God just answered their prayer. I don't know about you. I believe that prophet over top of anybody that would say something against him. I believe him. Do you? God bless you. Come next Saturday night, and as far as I know, I'm looking at the weather. I think we'll be able to be here 2 nights. So God bless you until then. Everybody stay.